If you tell me to explain it to you, I can't. I really can't. I look back to my whole career and I can honestly tell you, as I've told all my friends and people that I care about, I don't know how I got to where I got. All I know is, looking back, it was just a series of situations that occurred that got me to where I got. But there was no plan for it. How can I put this in a way where it makes sense? But basically, I was born in Lebanon and moved to Greece at a young age, and then moved to US to play basketball. I never thought about being a professional athlete, tell you honestly. You know, back in Lebanon, sports is not something that you want to do for your life. You know, you want to get a great education, you want to get a great job, you got to get some work, and that is the basis of your life. You know, playing sports is because nobody played professional sports, and you know, and then the people that did play professional sports don't make enough money to survive for their life. You know, so it wasn't something that I was looking at as my life goal until things started falling into place. This is how life happens, you know, it's just like the right place at the right time. I walked into a clothing store that sells big shoes in Athens. And the guy that owned the store was a professional basketball player, one of the best basketball players in Greece, and he used to be the importer of Converse in Athens. So I went to his store to pick up a pair of Converse sneakers, and he happened to be there. I was like, wow. And he's like, do you play basketball? I was like, nah, you know, not really, I don't, you know. He's like, why don't you come to this practice that we're having, which is the biggest team in Greece at the time. It was called Panathinaikos, which is still one of the best teams in Greece today. Dominique Wilkins played for them, and a whole bunch of players played for them. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I went there, and you know, again, I was playing against big guys, completely raw, didn't know much about the game at all, but the fact that I was just blocking everybody's shot and dunking effortlessly on people, like, what are you doing not playing basketball? And I was like, okay, you know, let's do it. And that's how the journey started in Greece. And then I went to visit my brother who was at Colgate University, and Syracuse had a basketball camp that same week. So I just showed up to the Carrier Dome and I said, can I sign up for this basketball camp? And I remember Coach Boeheim at the time looking up at me and saying, this gotta be a joke. You know, there's a 6'10" guy walking around looking to play basketball, and nobody knows about him. Like, whose trick is this? So it's like almost like a prank, you know? And he's like, you know what? You don't need to go to the camp itself, but I want you to come and play with the counselors, which were current basketball players and ex-basketball players and stuff like that at night. So I said, okay. So I showed up to there, and I was running and jumping and blocking shots and dunking and doing all these things. And the coach came out right after practice. He's like, here's a letter of intent, and you come into school here. I was like, okay. I signed the letter of intent, and I ended up at Syracuse. And then once I got back home, I got all these letters from different colleges, like, come here and come here and come here. You know, the word had gotten out after 5-star. And everybody wanted me to be to come to their school, but I had already signed a letter of intent at Syracuse, and that's history. When I started playing basketball in Greece, everybody told me not to go to Syracuse. Everybody told me, you're crazy to go play college basketball in the US because you're going to get eaten up alive. You're not ready to play there. Yeah, these guys have no mercy. You're not going to do anything. It's better to be the big fish in a small pond than a small fish in a big pond. And I just took that as a motivational thing for me to prove all these naysayers wrong. And the only thing that I kept thinking in my mind is, so the sky's the limit, the sky's the limit. I am going to keep pushing it and pushing it to prove everybody wrong, that I can make it at this level and make them eat their words. When I first got to Syracuse, I was this raw puppy that was ready to jump on any head fake and wanted to dunk and just athletic over the rim kind of stuff. And I had to learn how to just kind of calm myself down a little bit. So from there, every year I got better. Every year was a learning process for me to get better. I never got to a plateau and then dipped. It was always higher highs. I'll never forget the game. It was Syracuse against Georgetown, and they had Patrick Ewing, and it was a national televised game.
Campus of Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York. And inside, you may be looking at history. It could be the largest on-campus crowd ever in college basketball.
35,000 people at the Carrier Dome. People are going crazy. And Patrick Ewing against this freshman. And, he's going to eat me alive.
I wonder if Rony Seikaly, when he was born in Lebanon and grew up in Athens, Greece, thought about a young man named Patrick Ewing.
Never heard of him. And don't forget, when Patrick Ewing was a freshman, he got 12 points, 7 points, and 7.5 rebounds. But he did pretty well at the end of that year.
And thinking about it today, looking back, like, how did that game not put any pressure on me? I don't know. I really don't know. But the fact is that on his first turnaround jumper, I blocked his shot.
Golden, Raphael Addison.
Patrick Seikaly blocked him.
And set the tempo of the game. And we end up beating Georgetown, who was number 1 at the time. So I look back and think like, wow, I couldn't do it today. I wouldn't be able to do it, to walk out in front of 35,000 people and do this today. But I guess when you're young, you're reckless.
They're down by 2, looking for the tie. Michael Jackson. No! Syracuse wins!
After that game, the media started paying attention to this young kid that's at Syracuse. His story is very interesting. There was a story behind this. Like, how did everybody pass up on this kid? Who is this kid? Where did he come from? So the pressure started adding as well. Okay, the sky's the limit for this kid. Let's see where he gets to. Greece thought I was theirs. Lebanon thought I was theirs, but I'm actually playing in the US. I don't know if I let people down in a sense, because I would tell people I'm from Lebanon and they would say, Lebanon? And then it's like, all you hear about Lebanon is the war and the stuff that was going on. And then, so it was just always, it was always a tough thing for me to say where I'm from, because if I said Lebanon, automatically people would associate me with war and terrorism and things that were going on back then. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because people didn't understand, you don't have the information that you have today. Had I come from Spain, the transition would have been so much easier, but being born in Lebanon and coming from a Lebanese background was not easy.
Lebanon, the most dangerous place on earth. A land torn apart by religious and political differences, for generations engulfed by bitter civil war. Once the pearl of the Middle East, now the violent vortex of regional conflict.
The stigma of being from Lebanon at the time where information was very, very limited. So all you would hear about Lebanon is is war, terrorism, fighting, and all that stuff. And here I am as an athlete and basketball player trying to prove myself in the United States, coming from a country that just had a bad name, right? So When I got introduced in college in my basketball games as the starting center for Syracuse University, coming from the American school in Athens, Greece.
From the American school in Athens, Greece, a sophomore at 6'10", wearing number 4, Rony Seikaly.
Right? So now people are thinking I'm from Greece and I'm not from Lebanon. That helped me out a lot in the sense where people were like, okay, you know, so he's from Greece, he's not from Lebanon. But then the Lebanese people would say, you betrayed us, you tell people you're from Greece and you're not from Lebanon. But that wasn't the case. In college basketball, they always list the high school you came from. It doesn't matter which high school, where you played. It could be in China, you know, and that they listed. So that in itself helped me a little bit, get that stigma off me a little bit. So people got confused. Is he from Greece? Is he from Lebanon? And I played it. And I said, I'm both. How am I going to fight the trend of ABC News or, you know, CNN talking about this? And then my uncle got kidnapped in the 80s while I was at Syracuse. It was just a daily occurrence of what was going on in Lebanon at the time. And my uncle got kidnapped. And then, you know, all the news was coming to Syracuse to get a footage of me knowing that my uncle just got kidnapped in Lebanon. And that just added to the shit that I had to deal with. Like, not only, like, instead of looking at it like, oh, poor guy, his uncle got kidnapped, he was like, oh man, you know, this thing is just getting worse. You know, this is getting too close to home here. His uncle's getting kidnapped. Maybe he's a terrorist too. Like, where does this come from? When I came to play basketball in the US, you know, Malcolm Kerr, Steve Kerr's dad, was assassinated. His dad was the dean of the university, the American University in Beirut, and was assassinated in the 80s. I mean, this is the stigma I came with. I never had a problem being an international players with my fellow players or anybody else here in the US. Outside the basketball court, I felt a little bit that people didn't accept me being from Lebanon. It was hard, you know, it was really hard. The press, the majority of, like, you know, of people thinking I'm from Lebanon automatically assume me to being a bad guy. After being a nobody and coming from nowhere, you know, to being able to, you know, not only to put my Syracuse uniform on and represent the school, but I was representing my countries, both Greece and Lebanon, and I was this, you know, this guy that was changing the barrier of entry. You know, I was this foreigner. You know, a foreigner sounds back then like a real foreigner, like this guy's from another planet. You know, today the world is interconnected from social media. Everybody knows where everybody's from. There's not a kid in the world that's gonna go under the radar in today's world because of social media. But back then, being a foreigner is like, really, he's a foreigner. He's like from Mars.
Pick in the draft, and they're first in the NBA. The Miami Heat select Rony Seikaly from Syracuse University. The next selection belongs to the San Antonio Spurs. So Rony Seikaly becomes the first big man to go since Manning and Smith went 1-2, and then Charles Smith. But now big Rony Seikaly, 6'11", 240, hometown Athens, Greece.
So I had no idea that I was part of this European movement into the NBA. I was just living it. And when I first got here in '84 to go to Syracuse, there was no such thing as a European player. The European players is something you play against in the summer when you're touring with your current team and you play against these European teams and stuff. It's for practice purposes. But I don't remember looking at any great NBA players and thinking like, wow, this guy's from here or this guy's from there. I would hear about great European basketball players, and I would hear about great American basketball players, but I would never hear a great European player playing in the United States. It just was never the case back then.
Seikaly turns on Ewing, left wing, fakes him out of his shoes and dunks it in over him. What a move by Seikaly. The up fake lost Ewing's balance, and Rony Seikaly with a hook shot stuff on Ewing.
Making it to the NBA for me was my dream. Coming from where I came, just the fact that I was on an NBA roster, and just the fact that I could always look back and say, wow, I was one of the very few non-US athletes that have come here this early and played. That was a big thing for me. I didn't grow up in this country watching Game 7s and knowing how important Game 7s is and the finals and all that stuff and all that comes with it. So once I got to the NBA, I felt like, wow, I fulfilled my dream.
Into the front court for the Heat, crosses over. Great pass for Seikaly, who dunked. No look pass for Seikaly.
Now,
and Seikaly didn't
you start building dreams on those dreams, thinking like, thinking in your head, maybe I should have gone to the Lakers. Maybe I should have gone to the Celtics. Maybe I should have gone to this team. Maybe I should have gone to that team, instead of thinking about just going to a city that you love, but maybe a team that has a chance to win and to win it all. That could have been the better dream for me. You understand, in the sense of a basketball perspective, you have to be realistic. I came here, there was 3 other rookies on the team. We had a couple of players that were from older players that played, and we won 15 games my first year. So I was realistic that I couldn't set these goals of winning a championship with a team that's so young. Looking back and knowing that we went from 15 games to playing against the Chicago Bulls in a playoff series, that in itself was pretty rewarding. So this was the quickest turnaround of any new franchise to make it into the playoffs. And we had Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls in the first round.
This one to Seikaly. Seikaly with the slammer.
This is not college basketball. This is, you get to the playoffs, it's a 7-game series. You're not going to get lucky on a Hail Mary and win the game. No, you're going to have to, the better team is going to win.
Heat leading by 1. In the cycle. Nice move. There we go.
Making it, that was a big step for us to make it through and through. As far as a lifestyle perspective, I've done, amazingly well being in Miami, and I love being here. So that in itself is a winning combination for me. When I went to Syracuse, I figured, okay, it's cold in Syracuse. It was cold in New York City. It was cold in Boston. All the cities that we used to play. So it's got to be cold in Florida. It's got to be cold in other places as well, because that's just, that's how it goes. And then I think we played some team. I don't know which team it was, and the weather was so nice. I was like, well, how do you get this weather? It's like, oh, it's like this all the time. I was like, what? Living in Miami is to me is paradise. The fact that we can get on our boat just from the backyard, go visit friends, have dinner, come back, is just an amazing blessing that we have. Anytime I can be close to the water, it gives me that peace of mind. It's tranquil. I had a connection to this city. I loved the city. As soon as I got off the plane, I was like, wow, I would love to play here. And I visited a lot of the teams. Not only did I get lucky that Charlotte didn't pick me with the 8th pick at the time, but they had said they were gonna pick me. And my agent said, if you guys pick him, he may end up playing in Greece for a professional team in Greece. So these are the chances that you may have to take. And Charlotte said, you know what, we're not gonna take that chance. And they ended up taking Rex Chapman, and I ended up coming to the Heat.
A lot of pressure and criticism. My God, I hear the stories and I'm, wow, how did you dealt with this so well? There's a lot of criticism. That we see success as this beautiful thing and we forget how hard it can be, you know. So I think having all that behind him helps him to deal with everything he does today.
And that fuels me today because people automatically think he's a basketball player. What the hell does he know about, about music, DJing, production, music, making in its essence? And I continue to prove people wrong.
The music that I like, it was different. It was very, how they call it, commercial. So I was a commercial music lover. And when I met Rony, I was able to discover this deep house style of music, you know, that really is a journey. When you go to a club for, you know, just to see a celebrity DJ like I used to, you go on a quick trip. And when you go to see Rony play, what I noticed is that it's the journey. You give it time, there's a beginning and there's a journey and then there's the end, and you leave there with something, you know. It's very deep, it's very beautiful.
This is my little room here that I have, that I feel like is a sanctuary to me. Some people like to play video games, some people like to paint. I like to make music. And this is where I get inspired. This is where I take out a white canvas and do my thing. So, you know, the way you start out making music, you can start out a whole bunch of different ways. Maybe you have like a riff in mind that you like, and you can start the song based on the riff. You can start with a drum, with the drums or the percussions or whatever it is that kind of gives you that motivation to go and do whatever song you want to do. So I said, let me include something that can have basketball in it. Maybe, what can I do? So I stumbled upon Allen Iverson's famous press conference that one year. So I'm not sure if he's going to be happy. He's not going to be happy. I don't know if he's going to be pissed off at me or whatever the case may be. But basically what I did was this.
It ain't about that. It's not about that at all. You know what I'm saying?
And it sounds like just a regular guy.
But it's easy to talk about. It's easy to sum it up when you just talk about practice. We sitting here, I'm supposed to be a franchise player, and we in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game, not a game, not a game. We talking about practice.
And then it goes on again. Here.
I'm supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to leave. I know that. I'm not shoving it aside, you know, like it don't mean anything. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about practice, man. Practice.
And then here's
Not a game. Practice.
not a game, practice. House music is a style of music that it is exactly what the words mean. It's house music. It's basically some music that you make in your own house. And then there's a whole bunch of subgenres of this music that started as house music. This is big, and it's been big since I was 14. Every house that I've had since I was 14 years old has had a club in it. Did I know that this was going to lead to this? No. This was something that I've always done. This is something that I've done since I was a little kid. Every house that I've had in Miami Beach had a club in it. Every house that I've had overseas had a club in it. And it started in my parents' garage, and it continues. Nothing has changed. So I have the greatest sound engineer. This guy knows sound like nobody else. I mean, he's incredible. He's incredible. He's done the biggest clubs in the world. He's done all the big festivals in the world. It's just so hard to get him to come in and help me out. But I've waited a year. He comes every 2-3 years and tunes up the system, makes sure everything is working how it's supposed to. So I'm very happy that he's here and get the sound tight. It's all about frequencies. He knows which frequencies hurt the ear. He knows the frequencies that could, some people, his whole thing is, you want people to come in here and not get tired by listening. If the sound is harsh and the frequencies are off, you'll spend an hour in here and you're like, okay, I'm done, right? But if you get it right, then you can stay here where you feel the music, but you don't really get hurt with your ears. You're feeling it, you can still have a conversation, and it doesn't bother your ears. Music for me is not, I don't consider it a career that I rely on to make money, right? Music is basically a passion that I've been able to monetize. But I don't rely on that money to do anything. I've been blessed that I've been able to make $1 million from 3 different careers. Making $1 million from 3 different careers is pretty hard, and I've been able to do that. But music for me is a passion. Making money out of it is an amazing thing, but that's not what drives me to make music and to play music. When I was in school, don't forget that the mindset that we had growing up is that sports is something that you do as a hobby. It's not something that you do as a profession, because the chances of making it on a professional level is so hard, and to make it where you can live off of that money for the rest of your life is even harder. So most probably, if you do make it to the pro league, you're going to have a second gig at some point. And I kept thinking to myself, why don't I just think about my second gig right now? Because if, God forbid, I get an injury or anything happens, I'm going to have to fast track that and start thinking of what am I going to do next? And what is it that I like? What is it that I like that I can make money from? And what I love is real estate. I love, I'm almost like a frustrated architect. I love to see beautiful homes. I love to imagine beautiful homes, and from beginning to end, and see them through and through, from conceptual to end. And so I figured, if you do things that you love, it's never work. It's never work. And for some people, building and going through that process of building a house and picking out stuff is a nightmare. For me, I love it. This right here. Built this house, I lived there for 6 or 7 years, and then I sold it. I built that house right here. And I sold that. I built the house next to it, and I live in that. I used to build spec homes using architects. I would have a lot of input to the architect about how I want things done. With an overhang, so you can have a dining table outside here and also on the front, because you're treating this as a garden. But I've kind of graduated to knowing exactly what I want. And now I build houses knowing exactly what I want and have the architect do what I want instead of what he wants. And that is my next evolvement, is going to be in that space. And that's where I've gotten to today, where I just have my ideas and I like people to draw them out exactly as I want them. Because the hardest thing to do is when you sit with an interior designer or an architect is have them do what, they want to do what they want. And they just take you on a ride. Because most of the people don't know what they want. So they ask the person to tell them what they want. I know what I want and I tell him to do what I want. So that is something that I want to do. And I've been doing it. This is my house I did. It's a canvas for me. It's like music. It's like anything else. I start out with a blank canvas and I go around to these different houses in Europe and the US, everywhere. Every time I see something I like, whether it's a detail or it could be anything, just anything. I take a picture of it and I store it into my file of future homes. And that's how I keep going. Being drafted by Miami as a #1 pick was my dream come true. This is the city that I wanted to play for. This is where I wanted to live. 30 years later, I'm still here. You want the top down? We can do this. This is the lifestyle that I love. And we have a place in New York in case we want to go to New York and change it up. But as I've gotten older, I started hating New York more and more. Just too dirty, too noisy, too hectic. And I love all that. It's almost like a girlfriend, the same reasons you go out with a girl is the same reasons you end up leaving her.
It's funny, man, because Rony really takes this shit seriously. And I met him, I think he's been here, 2-3 years now, Rony? 3 years. And when he first came in, he's the most fun, loving, easygoing guy, but for that 1 hour day he's in here, he doesn't fuck around. And there's no other way to say it. He takes his training very, very serious because he takes enjoying life very, very serious, right? He wants to be able to leave here pain-free. He wants to be able to do those things we mentioned earlier and enjoy them. So, for me as an owner and someone who gets to observe his training day in and day out, watch what him and Felix do, to see his progression from the first day he walked in here to what he's doing now, I honestly believe Rony could go back into the NBA right now and give people a problem at the age of 50. Were you 50? I honestly believe that. I'm not just saying that to make him feel good. He could go back out there and give some of the bigs a problem right now. Because he's in better shape. He's in better shape than him. Those are the facts.
I agree. And then we ruin it all back up tonight when I play tennis.
On a weekend, we'll just go rally together, and it's very fun. It's very nice to have that bonding time with him.
Good, Mila. No, it's amazing. Listen, the best thing in the world is being able to enjoy these things with your own kids. When we started playing tennis together 4 years ago, we went and started lessons together. And I said my biggest dream is for us to play and hit and rally with each other. And we started doing that. Right, Mila?
Yeah. Want to rally?
You see?
Hi.
You want to come with us to Carlos' show? And then Gary needed to go. You want to come?
Wait, what time?
Now.
Oh, alright, like in my tennis uniform?
Go get changed right now.
I can't, I have to take a shower.
Take a shower.
What time are you leaving?
As soon as Martha's getting ready, so change, get ready, and we go. Yalla.
Okay.
Well, Art Basel started as a platform for art, and somehow it's slowly morphing towards a mini Burning Man, where you're mixing art, music, DJs, performances, and all that stuff within the city. It's become a very, very fun week because you get the nicest people from all over the world that are coming to see art, and then you're giving them music as well. So it's turned into kind of a music art festival than just an art festival. it's so hectic, and everybody expects you to show up to their thing. I have a lot of artist friends, both in the art world and in the music world, and everybody's doing their thing, and everybody's expecting you to show up to their thing. But you know, we can only do so much. This is all due to, you know, to Miami picking me when they did. I had an amazing basketball experience playing here. Those years were some of the best years of my life. First, watching the team go through its infancy stage into a playoff contender. Second is coming into the city when South Beach was desolate. There was nothing happening in South Beach to what it is today. I saw the whole, the transition from nothing to what it is today, which is, not many people can see that. And number three, being picked as the number one pick back in '88 and going to the game, to the finals in 2006 when they actually won the championship was an amazing experience for me to see that the team had come full circle and won a championship. I bought season tickets and I had floor seats, and I was a big supporter, and I was the fan heckling the referees. I love Shaq. He's a huge persona. I loved watching him play. Obviously, D. Wade was the engine behind this movement. I had an amazing time, thinking about it. I would always say, wow, I'm so blessed that I was able to see this firsthand. I left my mark on the team. I had so many of the team records, some of which are still standing, by the way. And it's 30 years later, and Alonzo Mourning, Shaquille O'Neal, and Hassan Whiteside now, and all these great centers that have played here. And I still have my little niche in the record books, which is an amazing accomplishment for a guy coming overseas, not knowing whether he's going to play basketball here. There is no doubt that what I went through as a young kid has made me the person I am today. I'm sure that had the war not broken out, and had that not given me that sense of urgency to survive and to live, I can give you many different examples of how I skirted not dying in Lebanon during the war. From having a bomb blow up on the second floor of the building when we lived on the third floor of the building, running up the stairs. As soon as I get to the house, the whole building blows up. There was so many times that I skirted death, right? Of course, it makes a big difference on how to persevere now. Like the worst has passed. All of this is easy. You just got to keep fighting for it, and that's what it is. I just keep fighting for it, knowing that, that it's almost like bonus time for me. It was bonus time.